What do we have here?
A special ingredients basket.
All right, what do we have inside? Let's see. We have puff pastry,
Dessert.
pears,
Sweet.
and a big hunk of Gouda.
Cheese.
I got the perfect idea.
So today on Between the Eats,
We're gonna make a pear Gouda tart.
not all desserts have to be super sweet.
In fact, sometimes savory and sweet makes the perfect dessert, and I prefer it that way.
I know. And so today we're gonna make pear Gouda tarts. And the cool thing about this is you can use apples, you can use whatever you want. And we're gonna utilize Beamster's Classic. It's their 18-month aged cheese.
18 months.
It's so good because it's the perfect marriage of that aged taste, but also with the young meltability.
Sure.
And
Just a nice hint of nuttiness, but it's still very meltable.
so we are just gonna chop some pears into squares, just chop them up because we're gonna cook them with some sugar and butter, of course, because this is a dessert. So we have to use a lot of butter and sugar. The cool thing too is we're gonna use the puff pastry, so it takes out a lot of the, you know, making your own
Oh yeah.
dough or like a pie crust, because you could use a pie crust, I bet.
You know, someday we should do a show just on making puff pastry.
Yeah,
an
and
entire show.
I think we should do an entire show on all of our shortcuts because I think that would be really fun. Because sometimes we get dough from like a pizza shop, sometimes we
Yeah.
we do some really cool shortcuts. Okay, so I'm gonna dump the butter in, maybe. Okay, we're gonna let the butter melt with a little bit of brown sugar and white sugar. And David, we have reasons for throwing in the brown sugar.
Sure. Brown sugar is simply white sugar that has molasses mixed in with it. So you want those flavors of the molasses, and it just adds a whole depth of flavor to your dessert.
Something different. And it also gives you that really rustic, you know, once we put everything in here, it gives you that brownish, rustic,
Sure.
sweet outside crust almost on the pears. Okay, pears in, we're gonna coat them up. Okay. We're just gonna let this get syrupy.
Why don't I grab the puff pastry?
Perfect. We're gonna let these cook until they get a little bit softened.
Now we're using, as you said earlier, a prepared puff pastry. And of course, if you want to spend the time making your own puff pastry, feel free to do that. And it is something possible, but you have to understand that within this sheet of puff pastry, there are probably 400 layers of flour and butter.
Wow. Buy it. Yeah, that'd be a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So tell us like puff pastry 101.
Puff
Like
pastry
you buy this to make what?
You can make anything you want. It's a nice substitute for a pie crust. It is different. You can make different tarts with it, as we're doing it. If you want it on pot, like a pot pie, it's wonderful on like the top of pot pie.
So it itself is not sweet.
There's a certain sweetness to it, but it's not overly sweet.
Oh, okay.
There's a little, but it's mainly butter and flour.
Okay.
They're the two main ingredients.
So we're cutting into squares, and then about a 1/4 inch around, we're cutting an inside square,
Correct.
but not completely touching all the lines together.
Two of the sides you want to leave whole, and two you want to cut completely in half.
Okay.
Because what we're going to do is use these two corners here as the pivot.
Okay.
So now that was cut, right?
And pull them up.
We're going to pull this side up, and it's going onto this side, and this side is going to come over to this side, which leaves you with a twist.
And I love the tarts like this because they're so versatile. They could be a Sunday brunch. They can be dessert. They can be whatever you want. Like, you know, today we're doing entertaining with cheese. So we're having these as our dessert. They contain cheese and they're these little pockets. But you can make a big one also and slice it.
Completely, yes.
So we could keep this together, but the reason we're cutting it into squares is so we have individual tarts.
completely. So we're just gonna go around each one doing the same thing.
Okay, so our pears are really cooking up. We're gonna add a little bit of red wine vinegar just to give a little acid.
Right. And what that will help to do is to keep the pears from going brown, and it will also help the cheese melt smoothly, as we spoke about earlier in our fondue segment.
Just let them cook till they soften. Look at my chef skills, David.
You almost got it. Let's pull it back here.
Okay, it's in the end. Ready?
Pull it back.
That's pretty good.
All right, let me show you.
Okay,
We should put the
let's
pan
see
down.
how it's done. I thought I did a
She
good
said her holding the
job.
pan like this. I'm gonna take it out of her.
I thought I did a good job.
Yeah, you did all right.
Except you get sprayed when you do it.
So we're doing this. Do you want me to cut something while this is happening?
Yes, I'd like you to grate the cheese and tap dance and do your Julia Child impression.
Today on French Chef.
Okay, so we're gonna transfer the puff pastry squares that are French cut to the cookie sheet, which we have lined with parchment paper.
Correct.
Then we're gonna grate our Gouda and build them with the pears. I'm gonna actually shut this off, if I know how,
Let it cool.
to let it cool off. We don't wanna put hot pears because it'll start to melt with the cheese when we're not ready yet. So we're gonna brush the pastry with the egg wash.
Correct.
And this is gonna help it to golden up.
Puff pastry itself, if you don't put an egg wash or a cream wash onto your pastry, it's not gonna get that nice brown color. And the one thing to keep in mind with puff pastry is that you always put it in your oven at 400 degrees.
Okay, why?
Anything lower, it won't puff. Anything higher, it's gonna burn.
Okay, chef tips. Perfect.
So, a little spoon. You wanna go?
Yeah.
All right.
So we're gonna put a little bit of pear, and then we're gonna grate some cheese on each one. Turbinaro sugar, or sugar in the raw, is this thick, big
the
crystals
natural.
of natural sugar before they would refine it. So what this does is it adds these sweet, crunchy little bites, and then it also gives you that glistening on the pastry that you see when you go to a really nice bakery and get your pastries.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Into the oven.
Into the oven they go. Thank you so much for joining us for our pear and Gouda tarts. They look amazing.
Oh, and I'm just adding a little bit of honey. And you can always subscribe and share with your friends.